Password Management, Strengthening the First Line of Defense. And for this, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Vikas Malhotra, who is the Country Manager for LastPass. Giving a brief introduction, Vikas is an astute and a result-oriented business leader with over 2 decades of IT industry experience, helping organizations achieve substantial business outcomes by providing niche technology solutions. As an experienced professional in the IT industry, Vikas has led engagements with organizations across verticals and diverse businesses. He also has to his credit the success at Wipro, Dell, Symantec, Oracle, Logmein, and now with LastPass in India. With this, please welcome Mr. Vikas with a huge round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am completely cognizant of the fact that I am probably the last man standing between lunch. My session was next. But yes, Gunjan has laid a perfect foundation for what I'm going to present, right? He spoke about the human behavior, and that is what my presentation actually talks about. Let's start off. This is what's really happening, right? 80% of the cyber breaches are happening due to weak and compromised credentials. We know that. Enough and more reports have actually put this on record that we have this issue of intrusion happening due to weak and compromised credentials, right? Let's look at the agenda that I'm going to cover today. We'll look at the threat landscape, the password headache. I agree it's a headache, right? That's why you need managers. At the same time, where's the gap analysis. Little bit on passwordless future. Everyone is talking about that, heading towards a passwordless future. And why is there a need for a password manager? I mean, at my booth, there were several conversations that where does this fit in? We have this, we have that. Where does this actually fit in? So let's break this down one by one. Before I move any further, let's look at some of the official press release statements made by these organizations. These were in news. I have just copy-pasted what their authorized spokespersons, be it their CEOs or the CISOs who have made this to the press. What was the damage? That's secondary. Let's talk about the intrusion point. How did the threat actor get into the infrastructure? Everything. And these are just 4, right? These are just 4 of this, wherein it clearly talks about the weak passwords, the reused passwords, the stolen passwords. So while this is what has happened, and this is what's continuing to happen, what's really happening is, while on one side, there is 85% of the breaches are happening due to human element, 50% people, they are creating more accounts every now and then. Look at how our digital footprint is expanding on our mobile phones. Look at the fact that when we bought a mobile phone to now, how many digital applications, how many applications we have downloaded, and how many of them we have not even used, but keyed in my password there, right? My password is there, my credentials are there. All the businesses today are trying to get as many users, and what they want first thing to do is to create an account with them. Sign up for free and then create an account. So let's understand where exactly is the password problem. So I'll also take the help of a meme, which I downloaded from the internet. We try to be smart like this. We all try to be smart like this, and our employees try to be smart like this. The employees in the organization, because we want to reduce the cognitive burden on our mind, so we adapt the most smart method is having the same password across or a variation of the same password across, right? I'm sure to a larger extent we believe that this is what's happening. So I've done something that moment I'll forget my password, I know this is the password for my Gmail, my bank, and the most critical application in my organization. I'm carrying the same user behavior to the organization and putting the organization at risk. Every year, we at LastPass conduct a survey of respondents around the world, in India included, and we publish a report called the Psychology of Passwords. These are some points from the 2021 report of Psychology of Passwords. The 2022 report is also out, but I'm still using certain metrics from what was published in this report. So what is it people say? When we surveyed the individuals, 79% agree. They agree that it's a risk, it's a concern. No, it's not that people don't know. And these are not everybody is a technical person or not everybody is a cybersecurity specialist. These are common employees in any organizations or a regular worker. They agree, but 51% continue to rely on their memory. And exactly when you try to rely on your memory to reduce your cognitive burden, what you do, you keep a simple password or a variation of a password or your personal details in the password. Many of our passwords will carry our personal details, and all those personal details we will fill in into a restaurant to avail 20% discount on birthdays, anniversaries. We don't even know the form that we filled in. How is it that this form is going to be, that data is going to be managed by that simple restaurant or a big hotel or whatever, right? Same, 92% know that using the same password or a variation is risk. And 65% always or mostly will still continue to use the same password. And by the way, this was during the lockdown period, during the COVID period, when people started working remotely. That was the time this survey was conducted. So individuals knew, but they did not do anything. That's why it said there's a lot of awareness. Awareness is always there, but not enough action. This is something that the survey further went on to employee versus the employer. I'll not touch upon everything over here in the interest of time. These are all very self-explanatory, but I'll be talking about the last one. 44% shared sensitive information and password for professional accounts while working remotely. Let's reflect on our organizations and let's think. First of all, our people are creating weak passwords, simple passwords, and at the same time, those passwords are shared while they are not around, right? They need to give access. There are project teams working on some applications. Everybody's sharing the credentials. And how are they sharing? On some of the most beautiful productivity tools. Microsoft Word, Excel, Notepad, emails, WhatsApp, phone calls. So what we are doing is, as it is, it's weak, and then we are telling everyone, even the third-party contractors or everybody, wherever we could be third-party contractors, everyone knows that this is a credential. So tying it back to the habit of having the same credentials across, the problem amplifies. The problem really amplifies here. And then the passwords do have a Lindy effect to them. What's a Lindy effect? It's basically something, if it has been in existence for long, there's a likelihood that it will continue for a very long time. We are talking about a password-less future. From what we have researched, from whatever we see, being in the password management space, we are not going to be doing away with passwords until 2040. We are not going to be doing away with passwords until 2040. And that's a harsh reality. Think of yourself as an individual. How many accounts today are without passwords? Even as an individual, we are not password free. Forget about the organization. There are so many complexities associated. There are complexities associated with the legacy applications. How do you manage all this? So with passwords being around and the breaches increasing because of this, there's clearly a gap. And the gap is on two sides of the spectrum. So businesses have brought in SSOs, businesses have brought in PAM solutions, tied it up with 2FA, MFA, but still the threat landscape is growing, and it's growing from where? From where the intrusion is happening? Weak passwords. Sorry. Mandiant report. So Mandiant publishes a report every year. This data talks about the dwell time. Dwell time, I mean, all of you know, is the time that a threat actor is in your environment without getting detected internally or externally. Look at the staggering numbers, and this is Asia Pacific. This data is specific to Asia Pacific. 2021, this number did come down. No doubt about that. But what the point it makes is, no breach or no incident does not mean no intrusion. So that means there's somebody there monitoring the activities and deciding their next move. If it's a state-sponsored one, could be a bigger move. If it's a local, somebody having fun, they could just be taking screenshots and making it public. But in either case, look at the damage that happens, both from a financial perspective and the reputational damage. And this is what Mandiant says. Mismanaged multi-factor authentication, weak passwords, and lack of account segmentation will almost certainly lead to a breach. So whenever they have done an incident response with, or a forensic check on any of the security breaches that have happened worldwide, this has been the main reason, weak and compromised credentials. Now let's look at what's happening around the world from a compliance perspective. What are the governments saying? There's a strengthening of the data privacy legislation. We know it's over the horizon in India. as well. It was scrapped earlier, it's resurfaced. I hope it will see the light of the day soon. There are mandatory breach regulations, increased organizational and consumer awareness. So governments are putting in a lot of efforts, even beyond the security leaders within the organization. The government is doing their bit to protect the businesses and the advising and the guidelines. So let's look at some of the advices that have come up. This is from Australian Cyber Security Centre. I'll not read through the entire paragraph. You could read this. This is what Singapore CERT says. Everyone has started talking about the use of password managers. CERT New Zealand. And I'm sticking to Asia Pacific. These guidelines are already there in entire European Union, US, everywhere. Such guidelines have already been there. And last but not the least, very recent, I don't know how many of you stumbled upon this, CERT India. 18th October this year is what they have issued the advisory on the use of password management. So there has to be a reason behind this, right? They are not just doing it like that. So awareness within the organization, awareness from the government, advisories from the government, everything is pointing towards the fact that this part of the puzzle has to be fixed in. How do we do that? So the most common question that I mentioned earlier is, where does this fit in? So let's look at the identity stack in an organization. On one side, we have our cloud applications, our SaaS applications, which our employees use day-to-day basis. Every day, everyone uses those applications. The other end, we have cloud, we have the shadow IT, we have the shared credentials, we have legacy applications which are somehow not tied to the SSO. And on the other end, we have servers, databases, devices. These are predominantly depending on the maturity in the organization. That's how the footprint is divided. Now, how are the users divided? How are users accessing it? So one side, we have the regular users. We tie it, all this to a SSO, bring in an MFA, and that's secured, right? No doubt there is security, but the fundamental premise of bringing in such solutions is the ease for employees, and at the same time, less password complexity, password reset requests, operational burdens for the security teams. On the other hand of the spectrum, we have a PAM solution coming in, and that's where this plays a critical role in protecting this. What about the middle world? What's happening to the shadow IT applications? Today, the shadow IT applications being brought in by different functions, different teams, continue to be the same, continue to pose the same risk for the business. Maybe, and please, you could correct me if I'm wrong, the CISOs might approve this, but might not be managing it on a day-to-day basis. But when a breach happens, when an incident happens, nobody can get away saying it was from that department. It's not my responsibility. The CISO, unfortunately, continues to be in the line of fire, even when there is a breach. And as I said, the breach could be a screenshot also, just moving around. That itself is detrimental. So what we are saying is, in this layer, bring in a password management tool to enable your employees to start generating complex password, starting to share passwords easily within the teams, and at the same time empowering the CISOs, the security leaders, to have a view of what's really happening. I'm sure today we all know that passwords are being shared on Excels, as I mentioned earlier, but nobody has a view of what's really happening. What are the passwords and who is it being shared? Where is that file floating? Where is that file residing? That's the challenge. This provides the in-depth analytics on how it is being changed, who accessed what for how long, right? And then bring a MFA layer on top of it. So a password manager, ladies and gentlemen, coexists and complements the existing investments that have been made already. And if not done, if it's a startup, if you are starting up or building the identity stack, that's the first building block, right? Some of the companies, why they are using LastPass, again, not reading through all of this, but yes, improving password controls, as I mentioned, reducing the risk of phishing attacks. So that means if a user clicks on a link and that application is not in the vault, the credentials will not surface there. The credentials won't surface on that link. That's a very important use case here. Reducing the third-party attacks, right? Inside out, outside in. Wherever we are providing services to our customers, or we are taking services from other managed services providers. We have their people, working on our environment. So easy onboarding and offboarding from the identity provider, from the Active Directory, that could be done from here. And then strengthening the regulatory and compliance position. This is the most important to my knowledge. I mean, as much as I know, a lot of investments happen because of the last quadrant over here, the last piece over here. So I did mention from a compliance perspective what CERT is saying, CERT India has said, and this is just going to grow. Well, I mean, the hefty penalties that this bill is talking about, the draft that I saw, these are like insane penalties that they are talking about on when it comes to breach. Really, I don't want to put my mind there, but that's a fact. And I think what I heard one of the security leaders say is that if India has to scale up and do business with these advanced countries, we need to get stronger. We need to get stronger from enforcement, from penalties, and all such things. So, long story short, a password manager which helps you generate the passwords, reuse the passwords, provides the reporting, is something that covers you end to end with any sort of applications that are there in your environment. With this, thank you so much for your time. I've been, as I said, mindful of the fact that I'll not take a lot of time because probably we are breaking for lunch after this. Sorry, there's a panel after this. Right, thank you so much. I'm available for questions, if not now in the interest of time, but I'm there at the booth. We are running some live demos, so please feel free to walk in and see for yourself. Thank you so much.